Hey, welcome to the channel, everybody. I hope you're doing well. So please go ahead, like, subscribe if you haven't already. This is a great way to help out the channel. It's going to push these videos out to other people. Real quick before we begin, just want to apologize for no upload on Tuesday. Unfortunately, my kid was sick and I had to do the Dr. Dad thing, but he's feeling much better now, and I promise I'll make up for Tuesday's upload on Saturday. So by now you guys know how the show works. I'm going to be checking out some clips, and at the end of them, I'll be giving my opinion. So let's just see what we got today, guys. We are live.
I just don't understand, how do you not believe in any conspiracy theories? I understand not all of them, not most of them, but you don't believe in any conspiracy theories? You just think the government's just batting 1,000 and telling us the whole truth? That's a strong stance to take. And again, as I said before, I don't like talking about politics on stage or off stage. I don't like talking about things I don't feel like I'm truly knowledgeable in. But I do know this. Our government is placed in charge of all of its people. I'm a father who's been placed in charge of just one son. And I lie to that all the time.
You know, it's a very good take and a very good point to make, actually. You know, that's why I love comedy, especially guys that are willing to make jokes about this kind of stuff. Sometimes you just gotta laugh about it.
John D Rockefeller was one of the richest men in the entire world from the oil industry. And in 1903, he funded the General Education Board with a famous quote of saying, "I don't want a nation of thinkers, I want a nation of workers." The General Education Board's main objective was to create schools that focused on obeying authority, following rules, memorizing, not thinking, and breeding you to work 9-to-5 jobs for elite corporations. That is why we see the mundane subjects in school of things like math, English, and other subjects. And I mean, even look at our schools. They look like prisons. But here's where things get really messed up. John D Rockefeller also funded big pharma and medical schools, with the initiative being from taking people from natural healing remedies towards pharmaceutical-based care. And from this, he created a perfect system. The schools create the workers. They work forever, which makes them sick. Then they have to take pharmaceutical drugs to stay alive, and from that, he makes endless money. Our education system is really just a monopoly. It is breeding workers so that the elites keep making more money. This is why it is more important than ever for us to wake up and choose differently moving forward.
You know, 100%. You know, just work ourselves into an early grave.
This might be the last generation to ever experience school the way you remember it, because countries around the world are now experiencing the biggest shift in education in 100 years. China just announced that starting in September, AI education will be mandatory for students as young as 6 years old. And this isn't just a coding class, it is a national strategy to prepare students for a future dominated by AI. Meanwhile, in the United States, you have the Secretary of Education saying this.
I heard that there is a school system that's going to start making sure that first graders or even pre-Ks have A1 teaching, every year starting, that far down in the grades. Okay, let's see A1 and how can that be helpful?
Now, to be fair to the US, AI in classrooms is even happening in the US as well. Several states have recently passed bills mandating AI in course curriculum. South Korea will become the first nation in the world to introduce AI textbooks nationwide. These digital books will collect real-time data on students' performances, giving them continuous feedback as they learn. They can also adapt the pace and difficulty of the material to each student's personal needs. And for teachers, they get sent all of this data, allowing them to see each student's performance like never before. Over in the UK, a recent survey showed that 60% of teachers already use AI for things like marking work. And then over in Canada, another survey showed that over 80% of students are claiming AI-produced content as their own original work. So we really got AI-generated schoolwork then being marked by more AI. And similar things with AI are happening in classrooms in parts of Europe, India, Africa, and the Middle East. But is this a problem? Well, on the one hand, you have critics who worry that kids are no longer learning or retaining knowledge, while supporters say AI isn't going away. And if we don't teach kids how to use it now, we risk leaving an entire generation unprepared for a world they're inheriting. It's kind of like when our teachers told us we needed to memorize our times tables because we wouldn't always have a calculator in our pocket. Yeah, So the question is this the big change that the education system has been needing for decades? Or is it just the beginning of something we'll regret?
100%. This is going to absolutely destroy creativity.
Do you have anyone in your family that, like, before you introduce someone to them, you gotta, like, kind of, like, explain them? Listen, if you don't have that person, no, so my Uncle Gary, okay, and we love him, God bless him, but before I introduce her, I gotta explain him. I go, hey, okay, just don't bring up, like, chemtrails or, like, you know, the moon landing or Nancy Pelosi. Just don't bring it up. You'll meet him, we'll have some mashed potatoes, and that'll be the end of it, okay? We were hanging out the other day, and my girlfriend gets a notification, a Facebook message from Uncle Gary. I go, what is this? She goes, we're just chatting. I go, oh, are you really? I would rather you be talking to your ex-boyfriend than my Uncle Gary, who uses dollar signs instead of S's when he types Russia because he doesn't want them to track him, okay?
Yeah. So there's a lot of those guys in the family.
The World Cup and the Euro Cup, they're all big harvesting exercises. All sport is fixed. Yeah. Every single sport is fixed on every level. They would never allow it to be, because they are fear-based, parasitic mentality. They will not allow two teams or two people or two fighters to go at it unless they control both of them under any circumstance. It's been going on too long now. It's really been going on so long that and you know, people are not realizing it's so in your face. It's so clearly in your face, and that people are still not realizing that it's going on. Becoming acceptable on television, that they're inverting sexuality, that they're emasculating men, that they're masculizing females. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious, and it disgusts me that people are still not paying attention to it.
Yeah, he's not wrong. I mean, nothing about that is wrong. I mean, it's all bred in circuses. I haven't followed sports in fucking forever.
If you know anyone who is pregnant or planning on having children or has had children, they gotta watch this video. This is shocking.
In the hospital, you're not allowed to have very long labors. So if you're not dilating rapidly, which you're likely not to do if you get an epidural early in labor, you will be given Pitocin. They'll put the Pitocin in the IV. It will flow into your veins. Pitocin makes contractions longer and stronger and closer together. So then the pain of labor is much worse. So you go with that for a while because you have the epidural, but eventually the pain of the contractions is overwhelming the epidural. You need to up the epidural, and then labor slows down more because of that, so then you need more Pitocin. Now you're not feeling the pain of the extra Pitocin because you've got the epidural, but your baby is getting compressed blood and oxygen supply because Pitocin contractions last so long and are so strong, the blood and oxygen flow to the baby is compromised. So then the baby's likely to go into distress, and then you're sent off for an emergency cesarean from a baby in distress from contractions induced by the Pitocin, which was necessitated by the epidural.
Step by step, one intervention leads to a series of interventions. And the net result is the mother finally ends up with a cesarean, and everybody says, thank God we were able to do all those interventions to save your baby. The fact of the matter is, if they didn't start the cascade of interventions, none of that would have been necessary.
There is clearly an association with induction of labor and cesarean delivery.
Wow, that's interesting.
Forget the politicians. They're irrelevant. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice. You don't. You have no choice. You have owners. They own you. They own everything. They own all the important land. They own and control the corporations. They've long since bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls. They got the judges in their back pockets. And they own all the big media companies, so they control just about all of the news and information you get to hear. They got you by the balls. They spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. They want more for themselves and less for everybody else. But I'll tell you what they don't want. They don't want a population of citizens capable of critical thinking. They don't want well-informed, well-educated people capable of critical thinking. They're not interested in that. That doesn't help them. They don't want people who are smart enough to sit around the kitchen table and figure out how badly they're getting fucked by a system that threw them overboard 30 fucking years ago. They don't want that. You know what they want? They want obedient workers. Obedient workers. People who are just smart enough to run the machines and do the paperwork and just dumb enough to passively accept all these increasingly shittier jobs with the lower pay, the longer hours, the reduced benefits, the end of overtime, and the vanishing pension that disappears the minute you go to collect it. And now they're coming for your Social Security money. They want your fucking retirement money. They want it back so they can give it to their criminal friends on Wall Street. And you know something? They'll get it. They'll get it all from you sooner or later because they own this fucking place. It's a big club, and you ain't in it. You and I are not in the big club. By the way, it's the same big club they use to beat you over the head with all day long when they tell you what to believe. All day long, beating you over the head in their media, telling you what to believe, what to think, and what to buy. The table is tilted, folks. The game is rigged. And nobody seems to notice. Nobody seems to care. Good, honest, hard-working people, white collar, blue collar, doesn't matter what color shirt you have on. Good, honest, hard-working people continue. These are people of modest means. Continue to elect these rich cocksuckers who don't give a fuck about them. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't give a fuck about you. They don't care about you at all. At all. You know? And nobody seems to notice, nobody seems to care. That's what the owners count on, the fact that Americans will probably remain willfully ignorant of the big red, white, and blue dick that's being jammed up their assholes every day. Because the owners of this country know the truth. It's called the American dream, because you have to be asleep to believe it.
You know, I've watched that stand-up so many times, and it gets more and more true every time I watch it.
The Jesuits are one and the same with the Catholic Church, but they are not. They are actually at odds with each other. There is an ongoing, tense relationship between them over disagreements about abortion, birth control, gay marriage, among other things. The Jesuits are in favor of far-left politics, particularly Marxism. And the conspiracy that the Jesuits have infiltrated the Catholic Church is more than obvious. And now the current Pope Francis is the first Jesuit Pope. Pope Francis served under the Black Pope before he became the head of the Vatican.
Fourth revolution theorized by Klaus Schwab and the family of international finance find in Bergoglio not a neutral spectator, which would itself already be an unheard of thing, but actually a zealous cooperator who abuses his own moral authority in order to support a destra outside the church, the project of the dissolution of traditional society. While ad intra within the church, he pursues the project of the demolition of the church in order to replace her with a philanthropic organization of Masonic inspiration. And it is scandalous. This applies to both, to civil and ecclesiastical world, confirming the pactum sceleri, the criminal conspiracy between the deep state and the deep church. It seems to me that in this conspiracy, the role of the Jesuit has been decisive. It is no coincidence that, for the first time in history, a religious of the Society of Jesus is seated on the throne of Peter.
Yeah, just a bunch of Marxist fuckers, man.
Check this out. I'm coming to bring the truth. I'm not telling you what to think. I'm just here to bring the truth. And remember, the truth is sharper than any two-edged sword, is able to split between soul and spirit. 1611 edition, King James Version, Holy Bible. Well, who's that? That's when the Bible was translated into English, right? Right. King James commissioned different cardinals and they decided what was put in, and they also determined the translation. Here's the problem. Here's the truth. King James of Scotland was a Freemason since April 15th, 1601. Why does that matter? I don't know, guys. Why does it matter? Is someone determining what you get to know? Is everything in the King James Bible also in the Freemason Bible? It's a big question you should ask yourself, and you should find out. Original King James Version shows Masonic what? Bible verses about Freemason. King James Bible Online. And here we go. Proof he wasn't a Freemason. He was. It's not hard to find. Very easy. All this stuff has been playing out for a very long period of time, and I just want to show you. Does everybody know who this gentleman is? Pope Boniface VIII. He wrote that, the Unam Sanctum. What's that, right? Ready. The Unam Sanctum in 1302. You imagine how long ago that is? And to think that something like that could affect us to this day, but what you don't know is this affects you right now. The Pope has authority over all people, the temporal, that's your body, as well as spiritual, that's your soul. This was a document that took over all the people on earth and took the authority that God gave you and it gave it to the Pope. So God was the one giving you all your unalienable rights. They came from God. After this, they came from the Pope. So the Pope took over you, your body, and your spirit on paper worldwide since 1302. Maybe you don't know that. That is the truth right now. Right now. Things aren't as they appear. And remember, the truth is sharper than any two-edged sword. It has the ability to divide between soul and spirit. God is in you. You are a child of God. You've been placed here for this purpose, for this exact moment in history. You are an extension of God. You need to know the truth to exercise your God-given rights and be an extension of God in your heart right here on earth. Right now, to be the change this world needs to see. And if you change yourself, you change the world. Be the change. State Nationals rock, guys.
Could you imagine if we weren't bombarded with media and we weren't all ignorant?
I can't afford rent, gas, or food. We're in a global trade war. What are we going to do? Bro, didn't you hear? We're good now. Our problems are solved. Are you even listening to me? I can't afford to feed my kids. So unless a couple of has-been celebrities went into space, I don't want to hear it. Bro, Katy Perry went into space. Don't give me hope. Are you messing with me? No, they did it. They went into space for 10 minutes. Did they come back thinking that they're better than everyone? Yeah. Katy Perry said that you don't know the love inside of you until you've been in space. Was it crowdfunded or funded by an evil billionaire? Jeff Bezos. That's worse than Elon. It really isn't. Did they take away attention from actual female astronauts and undermine the intense process of actually becoming one? They all called themselves astronauts and the trip an enormous...
Famous Autopsies Part 41, David Cwley Trigger Warning. Conspiracy theorists believe that the government killed David Cwley, but the truth is equally bizarre. David hoped to become a famous filmmaker and had spent years working on his documentary called The Gray State. He had recently suffered some professional setbacks, and him and his family were experiencing a lot of friction brought on by financial strain. In the winter of 2015, authorities found an unbelievably grisly scene inside of his home. The partially eaten and badly decomposed bodies of David, his wife, and daughter were found, along with an eerie note written in blood. Only 2 were homicides. Due to the nature of the bodies, it was tough for investigators to pinpoint a timeline. Sometime around December 26, David shot his wife and daughter execution style. It's possible that he remained alive in the home for some time after committing the horrible deed before delivering the same fate to himself. The family dog, left alive and hungry, began eating the corpses, leaving the coroner with a challenge. David smeared the words "God is great" in Arabic in his wife's blood, possibly as a taunt. His examination revealed that his hands had begun to mummify. This is rare but can happen due to cold temperatures and lack of oxygen. Animal scavenging was obvious. He was missing various chunks of his head and neck as well as his right hand. There was a bullet exit wound located on the top left of his head. No entrance wound was observed and little could be determined due to the absence of majority of his brain tissue. His toxicology report revealed that he had a blood alcohol level of 0.109. Along with his autopsy report and a year-long investigation, it was determined that Cwley died from a self-inflicted gunshot wound to the head.
Yeah, this is a really dark rabbit hole, and I'm going to try to find more.
Did you ever wonder about the environmental predictions that never came true? It's quite a fascinating journey when we look back and see what we believed would be the end of our world. Turn the clock back to the 1960s. The prediction of the day was that we would run out of oil in 10 years, a fear that sent ripples throughout the world, leading governments to impose new taxes, supposedly to fund alternatives and save the remaining oil. Fast forward to the present, and it's clear that this prediction, while alarming, never came to pass. Next stop, the 1970s. The threat this time, an impending ice age expected to arrive in 10 years. Again, the panic button was hit, and taxes were raised to supposedly fund research and solutions to this chilling prediction. Yet, the feared ice age never came, and those taxes, well, they never left. Moving on to the 1980s, the buzzword was acid rain. The narrative was that acid rain was going to destroy all our crops in 10 years. The solution? More taxes, of course, this time to combat this new environmental threat. However, a decade later, our crops were still standing and the acid rain prediction was a distant memory. Next, we hit the 1990s. The ozone layer was the topic on everyone's lips, with claims it would be destroyed in 10 years. Cue the introduction of more taxes to fight this new menace. Yet here we are decades later, and while the ozone layer has had its issues, it's far from destroyed. In the 2000s, the prediction was that the ice cap was going to melt in 10 years. The solution? Yes, you've guessed it, more taxes. Fast forward to today, and while the ice caps are indeed melting, it's at a significantly slower rate than the 10-year deadline that had been predicted. And now, as we stand in 2023, we're told to reduce CO2. The taxes are already here, implemented swiftly as we brace ourselves for another environmental prediction. So what's the common thread here? Every decade an environmental prediction is made, often sparking fear and concern worldwide. Yet each one seems to miss its mark. What doesn't miss, however, are the taxes that follow each prediction. They come, they rise, and they stay. In summary, environmental predictions have been a part of our history for over half a century. Each decade brings a new prediction, a new fear. But as we've seen, these predictions often don't materialize as expected. Yet, the taxes that accompany them are very real, and they have a lasting impact. It's crucial to be aware, to question, and to understand the realities behind these predictions and their subsequent taxes. After all, history, as they say, often repeats itself.
Pretty much, guys. That's exactly it. If you don't know your history, you're doomed to repeat it. And they always force this on the college kids.
So I've basically stopped trying to talk to family and friends about a lot of things because they're just not there yet. They don't get it. And it's not my position to try to wake people up. And you just kind of have to coexist in two realities, one where you know the truth, and two where you just play dumb like the rest.
You know, I can't blame some people for taking that position. There's definitely some people that I have just absolutely given up on trying to talk to. My grandmother won't hear it. My sister won't hear it. My mother, they won't hear it. They've made up their mind. Orange man bad. The climate's gonna change and it's gonna kill us. It doesn't matter what I try to say, it doesn't matter what I try to show them. I've actually had my sister to the point where I could show her something. Tried to show her, but she wouldn't even pay attention. It was like her cognitive dissonance kicked in and she just resisted. Like, no matter what I tried to present to her in any way, she just won't listen. And those are the people that you do have to walk away from. At a certain point, you have to realize that the line in the sand has been drawn for a lot of people, and some people just aren't on our side. I get it, it's a Herculean task and not everybody's up for it. But luckily there are a lot of channels like this one on YouTube and a lot of people that are even better at presenting this kind of stuff than I am. So word is getting around. There are a lot more people awake today than there's ever been. And I do blame the pandemic for that. I think the pandemic backfired on the elites in a lot of ways. I don't think they were expecting a lot of us to actually use that time to educate ourselves, to really educate ourselves. So I suppose that that's the one optimistic thing we can take away from that. But it doesn't really matter because we're still heavily divided. And you can take the Canadian election as a really good example of this. So here in Canada, it's pretty much a 50-50 divide. You know, you're either ignorant and you're not aware, or you're very awake and you're sick and tired of everything. But as someone who's lived under the Liberal government for the last 10 years in Canada and watched our lives significantly get worse in every angle, there was no way we could keep going down this path. But there's a lot of people that it just doesn't matter to them, man. I don't know if you call it Stockholm Syndrome or mass psychosis. I don't understand it myself. And to a lot of people, they just treat their politics and their politicians like a hockey team, you know? I'm Team Liberal the whole way and I'm never gonna change my mind. That's a pretty strong stance to take. So at a certain point, yeah, with some people you just gotta walk away, and that's just the end of it, guys. But that's what I got today, guys. Like I said, I'll be back on Saturday with the episode that I was gonna put out on Tuesday, so I guess I'll see you in the next one. But until then, 80 Canadian, signing off.